The marketplace was loud with voices, but when the guards dragged the alien warrior girl into the center, the noise died at once. People stepped back. Afraid of even standing too close, she was young, tall, and strong, but her face was bruised. And her lips were bleeding, her arms were tied, her feet chained, yet her eyes burned with fire. This was not the first time she had been punished. Everyone knew it, but this time she had spoken too loudly. Too clearly, against the rulers, the human stood near the edge of the crowd. He had come here to sell some metal parts, to trade for food and fuel, but now he found himself staring at her. Unable to look away, he had heard rumors of the alien girl who never bowed her head. They said she was cursed with a sharp tongue and a fearless heart. And now he saw it was true. The elder raised his hand, and silence covered the market like a heavy blanket. "You spoke against us," the elder said, his voice full of venom. "You said our laws are lies. You said we make slaves of our own people." The crowd trembled, afraid. The humans saw mothers cover the ears of their children, but the girl raised her head, her chains clinking, and she spoke with a voice both broken and proud. "I only spoke the truth," she said, her words echoing through the square. "I will not bow to lies, not even if you beat me." A murmur rose from the crowd, but the guards answered with fists. They struck her across the face, and she fell to the dirt. The human clenched his jaw, his hands curling into fists. Every strike felt like it landed on his own chest, but he stayed silent. Because he knew what happened to those who interfered. He had seen it before. The elder pointed at her. "You will be an example," he said coldly. "Speak again, and you will lose your tongue." The girl spat blood onto the ground, her eyes blazing. "You can cut my tongue," she whispered, "but you cannot cut the truth." The crowd gasped. The human's heart pounded. He knew this moment would not end well. The guards lifted her up, dragging her toward the stone pillar, where prisoners were tied for public beating. But suddenly, as if by instinct, her eyes searched the crowd. They locked on him, the only human standing there. For a heartbeat, time froze. The human felt the weight of her gaze, sharp and heavy. And then, as the guards shoved her forward, she stumbled, her bound hands flailing, before he even realized it. She had reached out and grabbed his hand. The marketplace exploded with cries of shock. He touched her. Someone screamed. She chose the human. Another shouted. The guards froze, stunned, as if lightning had struck the square. The human looked down, her bloody fingers clutching his hand with desperate strength. Her body trembled, but her eyes pleaded for him not to pull away. He felt every stare, every breath of the crowd pressing down on him. But he didn't move. He didn't pull back. Something inside told him this was not just a cry for help. This was a choice, a mark, a bond. The elder's face twisted with rage. "Seize him," he roared, pointing at the human. The guards hesitated, afraid of what this meant. For their law was old and cruel. Once a warrior girl took someone's hand in public, that hand was bound to her fate. No one could undo it, not even the rulers. The human's heart raced. He had not planned this. He had not wanted this. But now, the girl's grip burned like fire, and he knew he could let go and save himself. Or he could hold on and step into her world of danger. And for some reason, he held on tighter. The crowd's whispers turned into a storm. She chose him. The cursed girl chose a human. What will happen now? The elder's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Then let him suffer with her," he spat. "Take them both to the square of punishment." The human felt the guards closing in, their spears raised. The warrior girl leaned closer, her breath weak, but her words pierced his soul. "You are not afraid," she whispered, almost smiling. "That is why I chose you." And before he could answer, the guards tore her from his side. But even as they dragged her away, her fingers left a mark of blood across his palm, a mark that no water could wash away, the mark of her choice. The human stood frozen, the crowd shrinking back from him as if he carried death itself. He looked at his hand, still burning from her grip, and for the first time, he realized his life had just changed forever. The human stood frozen as the crowd's voices rose into chaos. The warrior girl's blood still smeared across his hand, bright and burning. The guards hesitated, shifting uneasily, because even they knew the weight of what had just happened. The law was old, older than the market itself. A warrior girl chose someone in public. That bond could not be ignored. And now, before the eyes of all, she had chosen a human. The elder shouted again. "Ha!" his voice trembling with fury. "Take them both." But the guards did not move quickly. They looked at each other, their hands gripping their spears tighter. No one wanted to be the first to strike. Because what if the human truly was bound to her fate? What if harming him brought the curse of the vow upon them all? The human's breath came fast, his chest tight. He had never asked for this. He had only come to trade, to survive another day. But now, because of a single touch, his life was no longer his own. The girl was dragged to her knees in front of him, her face swollen, blood dripping from her lip. Yet she still looked at him with steady eyes. "You do not pull away," she said quietly. "That is why you are mine now." The words struck him harder than any spear could. "Mine now," the crowd hissed, women whispering in shock, men shaking their heads. A human, chosen. Impossible, dangerous. The elder's hand shook with rage. "She defies us and binds herself to an outsider." He thundered. "She will die for this and so will he." The human's fists clenched. His instinct screamed to run, to break free. But when the guards reached for her again, shoving her face into the dirt, something inside him snapped. "Stop." His voice cut through the noise. For a heartbeat, everyone went silent. It was not just the word, but the way he said it, strong, commanding, without fear. Even the guards paused. Confused, the elder sneered. "You dare raise your voice here, human." The human stepped forward, his hands still stained with her blood. "You beat her because she spoke the truth," he said, his voice trembling but loud enough for all to hear. "And now you want to kill her because she chose me. Then you will have to kill me too." The market erupted again, half in shock, half in anger. The elder's eyes burned. "Then so be it," he spat. "Bind them together." Chains were thrown around the human's wrists, pulling him down beside her. The metal bit into his skin, cold and heavy. The warrior girl's shoulder pressed against his as they were forced to kneel. But she leaned her head toward him, whispering so softly only he could hear. "You did not let go," she said. "Now you cannot escape." He turned his head slightly, meeting her gaze. Her eyes were strange, full of pain, but also something else. Something fierce. "Why me?" He whispered back. She gave a faint smile through blood-stained teeth. "Because you looked at me like I was alive, not already dead." The human's heart pounded. He had seen suffering before. He had seen slaves, beggars, outcasts, but never had anyone reached for him in the middle of their own punishment. Never had anyone chosen him when all they had was a single chance to defy their chains. The guards pulled them up, forcing them through the crowd. People stepped back quickly, some spitting, some whispering. Children stared wide-eyed at the human. As if he had grown horns, he heard the whispers follow him like fire. "The human is cursed. He will die with her." Maybe he is part of the prophecy he didn't know what they meant. But the way they said it made his skin crawl. The elder led the way toward the square of punishment. It was a place of fear, a stone circle where rebels were broken for all to see. The human had passed it before, never daring to look closely, Now he was being dragged into its center. Bound to a girl who refused to bow, the warrior girl stumbled, her knees weak, but still she walked tall. Every time she faltered, the human steadied her with his chained arm. She looked at him once, and her lips curved into the smallest smile. "They see weakness in you," she whispered. "But I see something else." He frowned. "What do you see?" Her eyes gleamed. A man who will not let go. The elder raised his staff high once more. "Let all see what happens to those who defy the council." The guards shoved them down to kneel in the circle. The crowd pressed close, their fear and anger thick in the air. The human's mind raced. He had no weapon, no plan. But he had her hand still brushing against his, even in chains. That single touch made his chest burn with a strange courage. For the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was not an accident. Maybe this was the beginning of something greater. The elder lowered his staff toward them. The punishment was about to begin, but the warrior girl leaned close, her voice steady and calm. "Do not fear," she whispered. "If they kill us, we die together. But if we fight, we may live, and the world will remember this touch." The human's heart thundered. Fight or die. The crowd screamed for blood. The guards raised their whips, and as the first lash cut through the air, the human's decision burned inside him. He would not let go. Not now, not ever. The whip cracked through the air, and the crowd cried out. The first strike landed across the girl's back, and her body shuddered, but she did not scream. She only clenched her teeth and lifted her chin higher. The human felt rage burn inside him, his wrists straining against the chains. The second strike was ready, the guard lifting his arm high, but before it landed, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. The elder froze, his staff trembling in his hand. Another rumble followed, louder, closer, like thunder beneath the earth. The crowd gasped and turned their heads. From the western gate came smoke, thick black smoke, and behind it, the sound of explosions. Rebels. Someone shouted. The girl's lips curved into a weak smile. "They came," she whispered. Chaos spread like wildfire. Screams filled the air as people ran in every direction. Guards rushed toward the gate, unsure whether to fight the rebels or continue the punishment. The elder shouted orders, but his voice was lost in the storm of panic. In that moment of confusion, the girl leaned against the human. Her eyes burned with determination. "Now we run," she said. The human's chains clattered as she pulled him forward. Two guards tried to block their way, but a blast from the rebels' firebomb knocked them aside. The heat washed over the square, flames licking the edges of the stone. The human stumbled, half-dragged, but the girl's grip was strong even in her wounded state. She led him through the smoke, through cracks in the fleeing crowd. People pushed, cursed, but none dared touch them. The mark of her choice still burned. On his hand, they slipped into a narrow alley, the air thick with ash. The girl's breaths came fast and heavy, but her steps were sure. The human could barely keep up. "Where are you taking me?" He coughed through the smoke. "To freedom," she said simply. He almost laughed, because freedom felt impossible when chains still bound their wrists. But her voice carried a weight that silenced his doubt. At the end of the alley, a wooden gate blocked their path. She kicked it once, twice, until the rotten boards broke. Beyond was a hidden path leading away from the square. The human glanced back and saw fire consuming the marketplace. Guards and rebels clashing in the chaos, and above it all, the elder's furious voice crying for their capture. They ran, their chains rattling with every step. The path twisted through abandoned ruins, crumbling walls half covered with vines. The girl seemed to know the way, guiding him without hesitation. Finally, they reached a hollow beneath the old stone bridge. Here she collapsed against the wall, her strength giving way. The human knelt beside her, his chest heaving. Her back was torn from the whip, blood seeping through her tattered clothes without thinking. He tore a strip from his own shirt and pressed it against her wounds. She hissed, but did not pull away. "You should have let me go," she whispered, her eyes closing. "They will hunt us both now." The human shook his head, his hands trembling as he tied the cloth. "You grabbed my hand," he said, his voice rough. "You made me part of this, and I won't leave you." Her eyes opened, and for a moment, something soft replaced the fire within them. "No one has ever said that to me," she murmured. "Not my people, not even my own kin." Before he could answer, the sound of hounds echoed in the distance. The girl stiffened, her instincts sharp. "They follow our scent," she said. "We cannot stay here." She struggled to her feet, still bleeding but unyielding. The human rose beside her, and together they moved deeper into the ruins. The hounds' growls grew louder, their claws clicking against the broken stones. The human's stomach twisted with fear. He had no weapon, nothing but his fists. But the girl reached under the rubble and pulled free a hidden blade. The metal glowed faintly, etched with symbols older than the city itself. She placed it in his hands. "Carry this," she said. His eyes widened. "Why me?" "Because it was meant for the one I choose," she replied firmly. The weight of the blade in his hand felt unreal. It was heavier than it looked, pulsing with energy he could not explain. T wanted to refuse, to say he was no warrior, but when? The hounds burst through the shadows, snarling and leaping. Instinct took over. The first beast lunged at him, its teeth bared. He swung the blade blindly, and to his shock, it cut through the creature in a single strike. The body fell at his feet, smoking where the blade had passed. The girl's lips curved into a fierce smile. "You see now," she said. "You were not chosen by mistake." The other hounds circled. Growling low, the girl, weak but still burning with warrior spirit, lifted a broken spear from the ground. Back to back, human and alien stood against the beasts. The human's heart thundered, but he tightened his grip on the blade for the first time. He felt something he had never known before. Not fear, not survival, but purpose. The hounds attacked, and fire lit the ruins around them. The humans swung again, cutting down one beast while the girl drove her spear through another, together. They fought, not as strangers, but as if they had been side by side for years. When the last hound fell, silence returned, broken only by their heavy breathing. The girl staggered, but the human caught her before she fell. Her eyes met his, tired, but shining. "You fight like one of us," she said softly. He shook his head, still shocked at what he had done. "No," he whispered. "I fight because of you." Far away, horns blared, signaling the hunt. The elder would not stop until they were caught, but now, with the blade in his hand and the girl at his side, the human no longer felt helpless. He felt ready. Together, they disappeared into the smoke and fire. Not prisoners, not victims, but fugitives bound by choice, by blood, and by the forbidden touch that had changed everything. The nights swallowed them as they left the burning ruins behind. The human's arms ached from swinging the blade. His lungs burned from smoke, but he did not stop. The alien warrior girl leaned on him for support, her wounds bleeding through the cloth he had tied, yet her steps were steady. Her eyes never lost their fire. Every time he thought she might collapse, she whispered, "Not yet," and pushed forward. The ground sloped downward into the dark valley. Here, the air grew cooler, damp. Carrying the scent of earth and stone, the girl led him toward the cliffs, whispering words in her own tongue. At first, he did not understand. But soon a hidden entrance appeared between the rocks, a narrow crack that only revealed itself when touched with her bloodied hand. A secret passage, hidden from outsiders. Inside was darkness and silence. The walls were damp, water dripping. Like falling tears, the human stumbled, holding her close as they moved deeper. Finally, the tunnel opened into a cavern lit by pale crystals glowing faintly from the stone. It was not much, but compared to the chaos above, it felt like another world, a world of shadows. Yet safe for now, the girl sat down heavily against the wall, her breath ragged. The human dropped to his knees beside her, panic rising in his chest. Her skin was pale beneath her strange markings, her wounds deep. He pressed the cloth tighter. But blood still seeped through. "We need help," he muttered, his voice shaking. She shook her head slowly, her hand gripping his wrist. "No help." She said, "Only you." The words struck him harder than he expected. He had never been anyone's only hope before. He was just a human traitor. Unnoticed, unimportant, but here, in this cavern. She looked at him as if his hands alone could save her life. He searched the cavern desperately. Old jars, broken tools, ashes of fires long gone. It looked like others had hidden here before, but no one had stayed. He found herbs growing near the glowing crystals and crushed them with trembling fingers. He pressed the green paste into her wounds, praying it would help. She hissed at the sting, but did not pull away. Instead, her eyes locked on him, unwavering. "You're learning," she whispered. Hours passed in silence, broken only by their breathing. The girl rested her head against the stone. Her eyes half closed, the human watched her, fighting the exhaustion pressing down on him. Every scar on her body told a story of pain. Some fresh, others old, but all carried with them the weight of a girl who never bowed. Why would she risk everything to speak the truth? Why reach for him, a stranger, when the whole world hated her? As if she heard his thoughts, her voice came, soft but steady. "My people fear silence," she said. "They fear it because silence means obedience. A silence means death." She turned her head toward him, her eyes glowing in the faint crystal. "Light. I spoke so the children could hear that someone was not afraid." Even if I was beaten for it, the human felt something tighten in his chest. Her courage was something beyond survival. It was defiance, hope, a fire that no chains could break, and somehow she had chosen him to share that fire. He leaned back against the wall, staring at the blade resting beside him. It glowed faintly, humming like a living thing. "What is this?" Kay asked, pointing to it. Her lips curved faintly, though her strength was weak. "It is the blade of my clan," she whispered, passed only to the one chosen by vow. His eyes widened. "But why me? I don't even know your ways." Her smile deepened, though her face was pale. "Because you did not let go," she said. "Others would have pulled away, but not you." The human fell silent, the weight of her words pressing heavy on him. He had never seen himself as brave, but in her eyes, he was something more. Something that mattered. Suddenly, the ground trembled faintly, and voices echoed from the tunnel they had entered. The girl's eyes snapped open, sharp again, despite her pain. "They found us," she whispered. The human grabbed the blade, his hand shaking but firm. Shadows stretched across the cavern wall as guards with torches entered, their armor clinking. The human's heart thundered. He looked at the girl, her face pale, but her gaze unbroken. "Go," she whispered. "Save yourself." But he shook his head violently, his grip tightening on the blade. "No," he said, his voice steady now. "I told you, I won't leave you." The guards spread out, their eyes gleaming as they spotted the fugitives. One laughed, raising his spear, trapped like rats. He sneered. The human stepped in front of the girl, the blade glowing brighter in his hand. The guard's smile faltered at the sight. The girl's weak voice carried across the cavern. "He carries the blade," she said. "The vow is sealed." The guards hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. The human raised the weapon, his heart pounding. For the first time, he did not feel like a powerless outsider. He felt like a shield, forged by her choice, bound by her courage, and in that cavern of stone and shadow. He knew the fight had only just begun. The cavern glowed with the faint light of the crystals. The human stood with the ancient blade in his hands. The alien warrior girl, weak but steady, behind him. The guards hesitated at the sight, their torches flickering against the damp stone walls. The blade was not just metal, it carried history, power, and fear. Even the bravest of them did not dare step forward first. One soldier spat on the ground, trying to hide his unease. "It means nothing," he growled. "Kill them both and bring back the blade." But his voice shook, and the others did not move. The girl's voice broke the silence, low but sharp. "You know the vow," she said. "The one who carries the blade is bound to me. And killing him means breaking the law of our ancestors." The soldiers shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between one another. The human's heart pounded in his chest, but he gripped the weapon tighter. He felt like an imposter holding it, yet he could not let them see his fear. The girl's hand brushed his arm. "Weak but firm. Stand tall," she whispered. "If you falter, they will strike." The leader of the guards snarled, his pride wounded. "Ancestors are dust," he spat. "The council rules now, not ghosts." He raised his spear and charged. The human had no training, no plan, but instinct took control. The blade swung in a wide arc, glowing brighter than the torchlight. Steel met energy, and the spear shattered on impact. The guard stumbled back, his eyes wide with terror. The cavern filled with gasps. The human's arms trembled from the strike, but the power of the blade hummed through his veins. It was as if the weapon itself guided him. Correcting his clumsy moves, the other soldiers faltered, doubt gripping them. The girl forced herself to her feet, leaning on the wall, her voice strong, though her body shook. "You see?" she said. "Even the blade rejects you. It chose him." The guards hesitated, but then a harsh laugh echoed from the tunnel. More soldiers appeared, but among them was not just soldiers, a man in council robes, the elder's advisor. His thin face twisted with greed. He stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the human. "So it's true," he hissed. The cursed girl bound herself to an outsider, and the blade accepted it. His gaze sharpened, cold and calculating. "Do you know what this means, human?" he sneered. "It means you are no savior. You are a threat to the council. And to me." The girl spat blood at his feet. "You were always the coward behind their power," she said. "You whisper lies into the elder's ear, feeding him poison." The advisor's lips curved into a cruel smile. "And yet I stand here while your clan is ashes." The girl flinched, rage burning in her eyes. The human turned his head slightly, whispering, "What does he mean?" Her voice was low, heavy with sorrow. "He betrayed us," she said. "It was his word that doomed my family, his hand that sent the guards to destroy my kin." The human's chest tightened. This was not just a fight for survival, was vengeance. It was justice. The advisor raised a hand, and the guards tightened their grip on their weapons. "Kill him," he ordered. "But leave the girl alive. Her suffering will remind the people who holds true power." The soldiers charged, and the cavern exploded into chaos. The human swung the blade clumsily, yet every strike carried a strange precision. One guard fell, then another, sparks flying as steel clashed against the ancient weapon. The girl, though weak, grabbed a fallen spear and stabbed at another soldier. Her movements fueled by fury. The human's muscles screamed, his breath ragged. But something inside him refused to stop. Every time the blade struck, he thought of her hand gripping his in the market. The moment that changed everything. The last soldier staggered back, wounded. But before the human could finish him, the advisor raised a small device. It pulsed with light and released a high-pitched scream. The human dropped to his knees, his head pounding. the blade slipping from his fingers. The girl cried out, clutching her ears, her body trembling. The advisor's laughter echoed in the cavern. "You think courage will save you?" He sneered. "I have other ways to break you." The human fought against the pressure in his skull. Crawling toward the fallen blade, the girl staggered, forcing herself between him and the advisor, her body shaking violently from the sound. The advisor lifted a dagger, his eyes filled with madness. "If the council cannot have the blade, then neither will you," he hissed, raising the weapon high. But before he could strike, the human's hand closed around the blade again. The glow flared, brighter than ever before. The sound from the device shattered like glass. The advisor stumbled back in shock as the cavern shook with the weapon's power. The human rose, his chest heaving, the blade humming like a storm in his hands. "Not this time," he said, his voice steady. The advisor's eyes widened, true fear creeping in at last, for the first time. The human saw him not as untouchable, but as a man who hid behind shadows and lies. The guards who still stood lowered their weapons, unwilling to face the power before them. The girl leaned heavily against the wall, her lips curling into a faint, proud smile. "You are not one of us," she whispered. "But you fight as if you were born to stand beside me." The advisor snarled, retreating toward the tunnel. "This is not the end," he spat. "The council will never allow you to live." Then he fled, his cowardice louder than his threats. Silence returned to the cavern, broken only by the drip of water and the human's ragged breathing. He turned to the girl, lowering the blade slightly. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. She shook her head slowly, her eyes locked on his. "No," she whispered. "Not while you hold that blade." For a moment, the human realized something had changed. The soldiers had feared him. The advisor had fled. And the girl no longer looked at him as an outsider. She looked at him as something more, her partner in this fight. The bond between them was no longer just forced by her desperate touch. It was chosen. The human tightened his grip on the weapon. He knew the council would not stop. He knew the elder and his advisor would send more. But in this secret refuge, with her by his side, he felt stronger than he ever had before. And somewhere, deep inside, a new thought stirred. Maybe this was not just her fight anymore. Maybe it was his, too. The cavern was quiet again. But the silence felt heavy. The human stood with the blade still glowing faintly in his hands, its weight pressing on him like a living thing. The alien warrior girl sat against the stone wall, her breathing uneven, yet her eyes never left him. She studied the way he held the weapon, the way his shoulders trembled but did not bow. Finally she spoke, her voice low but steady. "You carry the blade now," she said. "That means the vow is yours to hear." The human frowned, confused. "What vow?" Her lips curved into a tired smile, though blood still marked her face. "The vow of my clan," she whispered. "The vow that binds two souls in battle, in life and in death." The words struck him like a storm. He shook his head. "No. I didn't ask for this." "You didn't?" she agreed. "But you held on when you could have let go, and the vow does not wait for permission." Her eyes glimmered in the faint crystal light, sharp and unyielding, even in her weakness. "From the moment I chose your hand, your fate was tied to mine." The human felt his chest tighten. He had only wanted to survive, to trade, to live quietly. But now everything was different. The law of her people had marked him. The blade had accepted him, and she was telling him that his life would never be his own again. "What happens if I break it?" he asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Her gaze hardened. "Then you die," she said. "And I die with you." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. He swallowed hard, unable to look away from her fierce stare. "Why would your people create such a vow?" he whispered. Her voice softened, almost sad. "Because my people knew trust was rare, and loyalty even rarer." so they bound it with blood. The human lowered the blade. Staring at its glowing edge, he wanted to deny it, to say he would walk away, but deep inside, something stirred, something that had grown since the moment she grabbed his hand. She had seen him, truly seen him, when no one else ever had, and now, could he abandon her? Could he abandon himself? The girl pushed herself up. Standing unsteadily, she placed her hand on the blade and whispered ancient words. The glow flared brighter, casting shadows across the cavern walls. Her voice grew stronger, though her body trembled. The human's heart pounded. He felt the blade thrum in his grip, as if alive, as if it approved. "I don't know if I can be what you need," he admitted, his voice raw. Her lips curved faintly. "You already are," she said. "You fought when you had no reason. You stayed when you could have run. That is what the vow demands." Before he could answer, a distant horn echoed through the tunnels. The council's soldiers were searching still. Their time in this refuge was running out. The girl straightened, gripping her broken spear, her wounds forgotten in the face of danger. She glanced at him, her eyes blazing. "Now the world will see if the vow was truly meant to be," she said. The human tightened his hold on the blade. He could feel fear crawling up his spine. But the warmth of her presence pushed it back. For the first time, he did not feel like he was walking into death alone. He was walking into it with her. They moved through another tunnel, deeper into the earth. The crystals guided their path, glowing softly like stars in the darkness. As they walked, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. "When I first saw you, I thought you were just another outsider," she admitted. "But when I fell and reached out, something inside me said you would not let go." She looked at him, her expression softer than it had ever been. "I was right." The human didn't know what to say. Her words warmed him more than the glow of the crystals. He only nodded, holding the blade tighter. Promising himself he would not let her down, they emerged into a wider cavern. But this one was not empty. It was filled with shadow soldiers already waiting, their armor gleaming in the crystal light. The advisor stood among them, his thin smile cruel and cold. "You survived longer than I expected," he sneered. "But vows and blades mean nothing against the will of the council." The girl stepped forward, weak but proud. Her voice rang out like steel. "Then let the council come and see this human is my chosen, and together we will end your lies." The human felt the eyes of every soldier on him. Once, he had been invisible, just a man trying to trade and survive. Now, he was standing as a symbol, whether he wanted it or not. The blade in his hand glowed brighter, responding to his heartbeat. And in that moment, he made his choice. He would no longer run. He would no longer doubt. The vow was his now, and he would fight with her until the end. The advisor's smile faded as the human raised the blade. The girl lifted her broken spear, her eyes blazing with fire. Side by side, human and alien faced their enemies, bound not just by chance, but by choice, by blood, and by the vow that would change everything. The cavern trembled with the sound of marching boots. The human stood with the ancient blade glowing in his hands, the alien warrior girl at his side, her broken spear clutched tight before them. The advisor sneered, flanked by soldiers in dark armor, their torches throwing harsh light across the walls. "You cannot win," the advisor spat. "One human, one cursed girl against the council's will. You are already dead." But the human's grip did not loosen. He looked at the warrior girl beside him, her body battered, her clothes torn, but her eyes shining with fire. That fire burned inside him to now. "Then let them come," he said, his voice steady. "If I fall with her, but I will not bow." The soldiers advanced, spears lowering. The girl raised her spear and whispered, "Stay close." The first wave of soldiers charged, and the cavern erupted into chaos. The human swung the blade, and light flashed as steel shattered against it. The weapon moved as if alive, guiding his hands, correcting his clumsy strikes. Each swing cut through armor, sending soldiers crashing to the ground. The girl moved with him, her broken spear stabbing swift and fierce. Even wounded, she fought like a storm, every movement a strike of defiance. Back to back, human and alien stood against the tide, their breath ragged, but their resolve unbroken. The advisor watched with growing fury as more of his men fell. Kill them, he screamed, his voice cracking with rage, but the soldiers hesitated, fear spreading like fire. They had seen the blade glow brighter with every strike. They had heard the whispers of the vow. The law, older than the council, some lowered their weapons, others stepped back, unsure if they should fight at all. The human's arms ached, sweat and blood dripping from his face. But when he looked at the girl, he found strength again. She turned her head briefly, her eyes meeting his. "We are not just fighting for us," she said. "We are fighting for all who were silenced." The words struck him deeply. He realized this was not just her struggle, it was bigger, heavier, something that could change everything. The council ruled, through fear, through silence. But in this cavern, with every strike of the blade, they were breaking that silence. The advisor, desperate, pulled a hidden dagger from his robes and lunged. The human barely saw it, but the girl did. She moved without thought, shoving him aside. The dagger cutting across her shoulder instead, she stumbled, blood pouring down. But still, she stood between the human and the advisor. Her voice shook, but did not break. "You will not touch him." The human's heart roared with fury. He surged forward, the blade glowing so bright the cavern lit like fire. With a single strike, he shattered the advisor's dagger and sent him sprawling to the ground. The soldiers froze, their leader defeated, their courage gone. The human stood over the advisor, blade raised. The man's eyes widened with terror, his lips trembling. "Please," he begged. "Spare my only followed orders." The girl's voice, weak but sharp, filled the cavern. "Lies," she said. "You betrayed us all. You killed my kin. You fed the council your poison." She looked at the human, her gaze steady despite the blood running down her arm. "This choice is yours now." The human's chest heaved, his grip tight on the blade. He could end the man's life now, but would it make him different from those he fought against? His heart pounded as he made his decision. He lowered the blade slowly, his voice calm but strong. "You are not worth killing," he said. "Your own people will judge you now." The soldiers shifted, their eyes on the human and the girl. Whispers spread quickly, carried on the air like sparks. "The vow is real. The blade chose him." They stood against the council and lived. The girl, swaying on her feet, reached out, her bloodied hand searching for his. The human grasped it tightly, their fingers locking together just as they had in the marketplace. But this time, it was not desperation, not weakness. It was pride, strength, and a promise. The cavern fell silent, every soldier watching them. The advisor groaned on the ground, powerless. The glow of the blade dimmed slightly, as if satisfied. The human and the alien warrior girl stood side by side, bound by blood and vow, their hands clasped, their bond unbroken. Slowly, the soldiers dropped their weapons, one by one, kneeling before them. For the first time, the girl's people bowed. Not to fear, not to lies, but to truth. The human felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders, heavier than any chain, but when he looked at her, he knew he would carry it. Because she had chosen him, and now he chose her, the girl leaned against him, her voice soft but filled with pride. "They will remember this," she whispered, "the day a human stood with me." He squeezed her hand, his eyes burning with fire. "No," he said firmly, They will remember the day we stood together. Outside, dawn was breaking, lights spilling across the ruined city. The smoke of battle still rose. But in the hearts of the people, something new had sparked. Hope, the hand she had grabbed in desperation, had become the hand that changed everything.